Viewing ancient Tongan and Polynesian history solely through a Western lens distorts their complexity, misrepresents cultures, and overlooks indigenous oral traditions.
And that's what's funny about Tonga is you have these academics trying to tell Tongans what their history is, and Tongans are like, actually, this is what happened. And so that's why you get these academics who are in these universities in New Zealand and Australia, and they read all these history books and they draw their own conclusions when they don't know of actual stories. And so it's interesting because it was known that Taufa'ahau said everyone that was in the fort will be killed, and tradition had maintained only until recently that everyone that was in the fort were killed, but there were actually 2 kids. Their mother was able to throw them outside the fort and hide them in a bush not far from the fort. There was a little hole and bush, and she buried a daughter and a son there just before the attacks happened, or while the attacks were happening. And those 2 kids went and lived with their relatives in Hihifo, and the families had been silent until recent generations. And this is how quiet histories are maintained in families. It's like everybody in Hihifo and everybody who had relatives in Nuku knew, but they were quiet until it's like almost 200 years later. Then they start saying like, yeah, our ancestors were actually hidden and we've been quiet all this time to just pay respects to the king and not offend the king, that two people that were inside the fort during the attack did actually survive.
Yeah, because his declaration
was they'll all be.
Yeah, which is, unfortunately, I mean, in the Old Testament, that's not something that's not unheard of, right?
Well, and that's the truth. That's the truth of government and politics anywhere. Like,
yeah. That was what I was gonna say. Is how is that only a Christian thing, right? When we listen to William Mariner and what he observed, right?
Yeah,
similar things. And I think, like you're saying, this is not a religious situation. This was a question about law and order.